Uncuckables.
Hello, and the Uncuckables is back after, the Melbourne team at the Uncuckables were all struck down with illness last week. I was. If you don't know, I'm Tim Wilms, Editor-in-Chief of the Unshackled, and who was also sick with me last week was David Hiscox, Editor of XYZ.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I'm glad to be over the Ebola.
We're wondering whether there was something put in the ventilation system here at the bunker.
Oh, do you think Antifa got to us, huh?
Maybe,
Yeah.
because the ventilation system, it actually goes to a road area.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, we'll blame Antifa.
Yeah, so
Antifa
it could have
bug.
been some sort of bio-warfare.
That gave us AIDS.
And we have joining us from a quarantined area of the country, James Fox Higgins of the Rational Rise.
Good to be here once again. It's been a while.
Yeah, definitely, and there's a lot to catch up on. But the biggest story in the world at the moment is the Squad. These four no-name American congresswomen of color. They are made up of, they're freshman Democrats. They only got elected at the beginning of 2019. Most people know Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, quite possibly the dumbest female politician in the world, surpassing Sarah Hanson-Young.
Yeah. Also, who looks more like a horse? Her or that horrible lady from New Zealand?
Oh, she's in Melbourne today, Jacinta Ardern. She got to meet Daniel Andrews.
Oh, really? Did he present her with a bale of hay?
So you can imagine they probably, their minds probably melted when they met each other.
I'd say so. Just
Dave,
into one.
you're a misogynist, mate. Obviously. Because you've made disparaging comments about two individual women. You obviously hate all women.
Naturally, yes, you can. Yeah, that must be true. That must be true.
I saw a great meme of AOC back when she was first elected that I've actually kept it on my desktop for ages just to save for those moments. But funnily enough, those moments haven't emerged where that meme has been useful, but I thought it was going to be. But this is it now, even though I can't show it. But it's AOC, with a goofy grin, and it's saying, "A week ago I couldn't even spell Congress. Now I are one."
There was a good meme by the Stand Up for Australia Facebook page. It's one of the Facebook right-wing Facebook pages that didn't get zucked. They had a good one of I think it was AOC on the top saying, people say I'm the dumbest female politician in the world, and Sarah Hanson-Young saying hold my beer.
Yeah. So true. Sarah's super troll.
Magic strikes again.
Yeah.
Well, let's go over some of her greatest hits. She said that some people are concerned with being factually, pedantically correct rather than morally right.
Morally right. Yeah, if you're wrong about the facts, then you're wrong about the morals. Yeah.
And according to her, we only
It's
have...
the classic bait and switch done by a sub 100 IQ woman. It didn't quite fly, that one.
Yeah, sub 80.
We only have 12 years to save the world, apparently, from catastrophic climate change, according to her.
Oh, really?
Yep.
We got told in 2000 that all the glaciers would be gone by 2015.
Yeah, but we're supposed to listen to... I think we're supposed to listen to her now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she goes by the Old Testament of the climate change catastrophe orthodoxy.
She calls it global warming, not climate change.
Oh, maybe she does, but yeah, she goes by the old dates anyway, right? That it's always just around the corner. She's just the latest and most fashionable Chicken Little.
And of course, she got challenged when she first won the New York primary to run in the safe Democratic seat. Ben Shapiro challenged her to a debate. I think he promised to donate $10,000 to, I'm not sure if it was a campaign or a charity, but it would have been worth a while. And her response was, "Stop catcalling me."
So he proceeded.
Yeah,
Did you lose me there?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think our audience lost us. So.
Oh, good.
I actually heard that she's actually being challenged by a Republican who's from Jamaica. I think.
Yeah, Jamaican immigrant. I think the Republicans, they should have put an older white man there just to stick it up them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've seen people going, "Oh, what's she going to do now? She's being challenged by a Jamaican woman of color." I'm like, then the Democrats have already won. Like, that's the whole point. You're playing their game. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing as well about the Republicans is the party is so factional. Like, it's like our parties here. There's all the little factions, but over there it's times. Well, it's an order of magnitude bigger, and the number of factions are bigger. But there's still so many neocons in the Republican world who are claiming to be conservatives, who are claiming to have America first values, but obviously don't.
And the second member of the squad, well, the most well-known member is Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. Now, she was born in Somalia, then went to Kenya as a refugee before becoming going to America, and pretty much she's a Muslim. She wears the thing on her head. She doesn't, in my opinion, actually wear like a good one. It's like she hasn't got much.
How'd she get the surname Presley then?
No, I'm talking about Ilhan Omar.
Right. I'm already on to the next one.
Let's bring up a photo of the squad. There we go. There. So that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez there, and that's what I'm talking about there. Ilhan Omar. Like, what is that?
I think she's trying really hard to be a stereotype. Yeah, you were saying, James?
Well, that right there is just a single picture that captures the idea that America is an idea, right? All you have to do is show up and say, I'm an American, and you are, right? And this is, I mean, obviously some of these women are not first generation in America. They've been born there, but I presume some of them have been born there, at least one of them possibly. But, this has been happening for a very long time, and people have lost sight of what America was founded to be, which was, an independent colony of British immigrants and their progeny. And that was what America was. And then it all got pretty muddled pretty quickly after that. And now there's a lot of confusion and lies told about what it is today.
You're spot on, James. And that actually gets us to the heart of like what's going on here with the controversy. Like, do we actually have the tweets that Donald Trump actually said? Because
he really went for it, didn't he?
He went for it, but he didn't go for it fully because he still went with the America is an idea. Here
we go.
Yeah.
Here, I'll see if I can make it. Here we go. So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how the government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help the totally broken, crime-infested places where they came from, then come back and show us how it's done? These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure Nancy Pelosi will very quickly work out free travel arrangements.
So good. So many layers of smackdown in there.
So it is pretty cool. He's basically saying, hey, love it or leave it. But the thing is, like, I wrote about this. Like, I made a distinction. There's a difference between love it or leave it and fuck off, we're full. Or even just,
well, it's civic nationalism.
Yes.
Versus nationalism.
Yeah, because the key line in there is then come back and show us how it is done. So basically,
it's this big beautiful door in the wall. If it's legal, it's okay.
Yeah, and America is happy to take anybody from anywhere in the world as long as they share our values.
Yeah, but he's also contradicting that at the same time, because none of those women could be congresswomen if they weren't American citizens, legally.
Well,
So they're all American citizens legally.
Yeah.
But he's saying go back to where you came from, and the places that you come from have terrible ideas and terrible governments and cultures that lead to those terrible ideas and governments. So in a way, it's the usual kind of 3-point something D chess with Trump, possibly 4D chess, where he's both using the language of the far right.
Yep.
He's using the language like go back to where you came from and you can't leave fast enough. But at the same time, he's satisfying the swarming infestation of neocons around him,
Yeah,
and
okay.
and
Yeah, that's a good
all of
point.
those types.
That's a very good point. The way I analysed it, it was like full civic nationalism, but that's a good point. Like he is using, like he's still signaling to us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whether or not he would actually go all the way in the next 4 years and implement the kind of things that he's hinting at, that's probably a bit more far-fetched. He hasn't been quite as effective as anyone would have hoped. I think particularly on the wall and the immigration front. But he's ramping up the rhetoric, and it's still not 2020 yet. So this risky play is something that only Trump has been able to do, is go smash the Overton window and then get elected on it. And he's just done it again.
Ilhan Omar, she was the only one that was born overseas, as I mentioned before, in Somalia. But she is probably the one that is most anti-American because she seems to have more of a solidarity with her fellow Muslims. I mean, she's obsessed with the Israeli investment boycott sanctions campaign. She wants to allow ISIS fighters back into the country. There's footage of her which she thinks that Al Qaeda is criticized too much when the United States government should be criticized just as much. And if there was, of course, the famous address she gave to the Council on Arab relations in the United States, where she said, Muslims all lost their civil liberties in the United States because some people did something on 9/11.
Maybe she didn't want to name a certain state. I don't know.
I love that, but hopefully if we just repeat something was done by some people enough times, then in 2 or 3 generations, people will forget what actually happened, because that's what liars do, right? They do it over a few generations, so you forget.
How would she feel if we called the Christchurch attack some guy did something?
Yeah, there's a reason why on XYZ we only ever refer to it as the Christchurch incident. Like that's actually deliberate. Yeah. It's what they do with everything that happens to us. It's like we're supposed to forget every single suicide bombing, every single truck of peace attack. Just forget about that. But this rise of Islamophobia, it's come from nowhere. We don't know what's going on. It must be because people are worried about things are changing too rapidly.
It's just colonial.
Oh, we lost James again.
2.0, and it's it's just white colonialism, and in their eyes, and therefore the appropriate response is to silence you and then colonize you, because colonialism is bad if you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the reason why Trump at the end of that tweet said, I'm sure Nancy Pelosi, who's the Democrat House Speaker, would love to arrange travel overseas for you, is because she doesn't even like them. And she's had the reputation for 20 years of being the most far-left Democrat.
Yeah.
And she... The first attack she made on the squad was she said the reason why we won the House was not because of winning my district or AOC's district, is because we won Republican districts. And she actually said this glass of water could have won those districts with a D in front of its name. Yeah, right. And this is how the squad, they got into the Congress. They all won the Democratic primary, and we know how far left the Democrat Party has gone. And so, they easily won those districts, and like Nancy Pelosi said, they could have put up a glass of water and it would have won. They just chose to put up communist far left.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because there was an article in The Australian that actually referred to Nancy Pelosi as a centrist. So she's now a centrist compared to these people.
Center of the left.
Yeah, right? She's center of the far left. Yeah. It's really interesting because there is an ideological battle going on in the Democrat Party. But when I say it's ideological, it's really about race. This is why we've got to talk about race, because there's a race war going on in the Democrat Party. The old white and Jewish establishment of the Democrat Party is being replaced by these new people, these women of color. They're painting people like Bernie Sanders as sort of old and representing the old system. They're using the line that like nobody's inspired by moderation, and if you have a stake in the system, if you have privilege, you can afford for there to be like incremental change. But if you're just living from day to day and like you have no privilege, then you really need radical change. So they're combining like just ramping up that socialist rhetoric with a real identity politics, and they're projecting that onto Donald Trump because they're the ones who are actually obsessed with race.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Trump is probably, it's funny because he says it himself, but it's also true that he's probably one of the least racist presidents America's ever seen. To his detriment. But he's never what they say he is. That's the hilarious part, and he manages to trigger everyone at the same time, and signal in all the right ways. So I think the fallout of this particular debacle is probably not going to be as big as people are trying to blow it up to be, because it's just another day of trolling. But he's hitting a few nerves that are important to hit now. I think it's going to affect his campaign results in a positive way, ultimately.
Yes.
But if it leads to an impeachment, if they actually manage to push this over into an impeachment or the excuse for it, bring it on. That'll get things moving. It's got to happen.
That's really interesting because I find it amazing that this is basically drawing a line in the sand. They're saying, okay, whether or not America remains a white country or whether we can change it to being a non-white country, that's the issue that we're going to use as the excuse to launch impeachment against Donald Trump. So that they're literally making
that's the hill they
issue
want to
about
die
race.
on,
Yeah, that's the hill they're going to die on. Yes.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. Yeah, I actually agree with you. Like if they actually want to really push things along, they will try to impeach, because if Donald Trump gets impeached, you're going to have a whole lot of real Americans deciding, right, well, we've tried going along with democracy to
That's
basically look out for our own interests, and you're showing us that democracy doesn't work. We're going to act in accordance.
Well, even
what does work? The Second Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
that's it.
Even though Nancy Pelosi, she spearheaded the resolution to condemn President Trump's racist tweets, and she actually broke a House rule when she said that, because you're not supposed to slander the president on the House floor. But there was a separate resolution for impeachment, and that got defeated 332 to 95. Yeah. So, even though Pelosi, she is defending the squad after this, she's not going to go along with impeachment. In fact, that's been the reason why she doesn't like the squad, is because they're just so extreme. In even after the Mueller investigation, it's like, his administration is still corrupt and lawless. We need to impeach him.
Right.
And
because the House of Representatives, is that the House that the Democrats control?
Yeah, they do.
So what we're seeing there is that a whole lot of Democrats voted against impeaching Donald Trump. Okay. That's actually a really big deal.
Like Nancy Pelosi, she dismissed the squad as like, oh, that's like 5 people. Well, it looks to be like 95 people now, but still.
Well, they're very good at nagging, the squad. They're very good at nagging.
You're a misogynist, James.
and they're very good at finding the white knights in the building and nagging them the most.
Yes. Yeah, spot on.
And AOC, she even accused Nancy Pelosi of being a racist, saying that she was targeting freshman congresswomen of color.
There's going to be this critical mass soon. I can feel it, where everyone en masse in the West is just going to stop giving a shit about being called racist. No one's going to care anymore. We're just going to, that freedom will just wash over all of us, and we'll just go, okay, whatever. Sure, I'm a racist. Call me that if you want. Sure, I'm a misogynist, whatever. Now I'll go talk to people who can actually have a conversation like an adult. And it's going to be good, I think, when that effect spreads.
Absolutely, especially having conversations with people on our own side. Like when there's a meme that can't die fast enough. It's the Democrats are the real racists. We're the real racists, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, being being racist does not make us left wing, and also there's no such thing as racism. So racism is just an anti-white slur.
Yeah.
designed
Well, there's
by
no such thing as
communists.
racism that isn't perfectly natural to all species of life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we prefer our family. Everyone does, and anyone who tells you they don't is lying. It just then is a matter of realizing that the family is bigger than you thought it is. You know, that there's your immediate family, but you know, we have a history with our own people, just as every other group has a history with their people. And a people is a very, very large extended family.
Yeah.
And a people does well when it sees itself that way and works together that way. But families, you know, are fairly exclusive except by negotiation and marriage and, you know, big decisions like that. So you can't just walk into somebody's yard and say, hey, I'm a member of the family now.
Yes.
If you're not.
Well,
Yes.
the squad
Yes.
want to tear down the US southern border. That's been the thing they've been
wanna tear down
raging about this week. The detention facilities on the border, or as they call them, concentration camps that were, well, they've been in place, well, successive administrations since, well, Barack Obama's actually deported more illegal immigrants than Trump has. And the cages that they're allegedly kept in these illegal immigrant detainees, that was an Obama policy. But all of a sudden, because Trump, you know, wants to increase border security, that the left has completely switched. No, we've got to tear down all the barriers. The squad, they want the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency, they want it abolished. ICE, they were conducting raids in sanctuary cities this weekend, and that's been
They're kicking a lot of people out.
another upholding the immigration laws of country. Oh, how terrible!
Yes.
Yeah, let's firebomb the building now.
So the squad have said another reason Trump should be impeached because he's responsible for human rights violations.
Yeah. So they're ignoring the fact that a lot of these rules were put in place by Barack Obama. But
All Trump has
Democrats.
to say to that is, like, who gives a shit about human rights? Let's talk about American rights.
yeah. Yeah.
All he has to say.
Again, the whole point
And
here
it's
is
literally his job to say that as well.
Yes. Yeah. Again, the whole point here is that they want America to not be a white majority country, and they're trying to push that to go faster. They're ramping things up because they know that swing is going to happen soon. They know that critical mass is coming, so they're trying to get as much done as they can, so that they can have the numbers, pretty much.
And AOC, she was the one that called them concentration camps. She actually inspired an Antifa domestic terror attack on an ICE facility.
Blood's on her hands. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just go to the story. This was written by Lucas Rosas of the Unshackled and formerly XYZ. Armed Antifa terrorist was shot and killed by police. He attacked a ICE detention facility in Tacoma, Washington, that is like miles away from the border, with homemade bombs and rifle. So it was 69-year-old Willem van Sprausen. He'd been in the Seattle Antifa scene for 2 decades, member of the John Brown Gun Club. And he also had a manifesto outlining why he attacked it. Said, "I'm Antifa. I stand with comrades around the world. I regret that I'll miss the rest of the revolution. Thank you for the honor. I've been in your midst in these days of fascist hooligans preying on the vulnerable. We are living in visible fascism ascend." So, and this is what this graphic is what Antifa supporters all around the world were sharing.
So they're not condemning their attack. They're not disassociating themselves with him. They're not saying Antifa has nothing to do with terrorism, nothing to do with violence. Like they're actually
claiming
what
it with
this
this.
guy
Look
did.
at that.
Yeah. Thankfully, like no one was killed by him. The only person killed was him. The authorities did their job, but you know,
And then they say we're going to inherit the earth. That's how effective they are.
like he was you don't go in with bombs and a gun unless you're wanting to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, it was revealed by Tucker Carlson that this guy, William Van Sprelsen, he was...
We've got the.
Oh, sorry.
We're in the tunnel of doom. Hey, we're back.
Oh, there's James again. Yeah, the CNN did a feature, flattering feature on Antifa up in Seattle, and the reporter was impressed that, oh, you carry a knife with you, and you can actually see this guy William in the background. He's not featured, but you can like see him there. So CNN like actively gave him a platform.
Yeah, wow.
And so, like, given what happened after Christchurch, how like all of these right-wing pages and accounts were shut down, like this is a domestic terrorist attack which Antifa all around the world on Facebook and Twitter have glorified, said he's a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is that allowed? Like that is a direct threat to national security.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing more to add. You just asked the question. That's spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, what it actually is the early stages of fourth generation warfare. It's already begun. You know, it's not really domestic terrorism. It's a war of factions, and it's going to escalate, and there'll just be more and more and more. And it will always, you know, it's the agitating globalist parasitic left who start it, just about always. And it's the pride and the nationalism of the inhabitants of the land that are being slowly conquered, who eventually will activate. You know, they'll wake up, they'll activate, and they'll start to retaliate, and it'll just grow and grow from there. I honestly don't. I've said it a few times. I would be very surprised if the United States of America was still 50 states united by the end of the 2020s. You know, I think there'll be at least one breakaway state in the next 10 years, and it's going to come about after a lot of fighting.
Well, as we were talking about before, I mean, Trump, he's done all this, attacked the squad. Let's go to, like, because he kept doubling down on it. I just love the tweets after. If I go into it, I've got to move the thing across. Those tweets were not racist. I don't have a racist bone in my body. The so-called vote to be taken by Democrats, con game. Republicans should not show weakness and fall into their trap. This should be a vote on the filthy language, statement, and lies told by a Democrat congresswoman who I believe, based on their actions, hate our country. Get a list of the horrible things they have said. Omar is polling at 8%, Cortez 21%. Nancy Pelosi tried to push them away, but forever wedded to the Democrat Party. See you in 2020.
I love that closer. Snap. Although, if I were on his communications staff, I would tweak the beginning of that to say, "There's not a racist bone in my body. I've slept with beautiful women from just about every race, and they were gorgeous. Believe me."
And he grabbed
and just
one of them by the pussy. Yeah.
just for the record, I don't endorse polyamory at all.
But it's going to, like, the reason why most of us are certain that Trump's going to be elected in 2020 is because Hillary Clinton, she took a left turn in 2016. I mean, she was a moderate Democrat. Like, she ran on identity politics, ran on these far left socialist policies. And, well, the Democrat, like, I'm not sure if you've watched the Democrat debates now. It's like, yeah, we want to give all these benefits to illegal aliens. We want to have zero carbon emissions in a number of years. We want, what was the one? One of them got into trouble for not including trans men who could have abortions.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just going further and further to the left. As I was saying before, like thanks to listening to the ABC radio every now and then, I get NPR as well, and so I get to hear the Communists of America via the Communists of Australia. And yeah, they were interviewing Democrat activists, and like you've got people giving speeches attacking moderate candidates of the Democrat Party, people giving speeches and actively campaigning against Joe Biden because he's not extreme enough, and they're
Oh
making
yeah,
this.
they're going to push hard. The
Yeah.
left's going to go even more hyper radical. We ain't seen nothing yet,
Mm.
you know. Like, and Antifa is just the beginning because it's just all the dorkweeds who you know, need something to do on their weekend. But you know, it will grow because you know that whole radical left movement is gaining legitimacy through people like AOC. Or, you know, at least gaining legitimacy to the people who are likely to jump on board and start swinging the bike locks. So, yeah, I just think it's going to grow and grow.
There are a whole lot of
And,
real Americans just waiting to just busting their nuts to exercise some self-defense, some rigorous.
Oh yeah,
self-defense.
yeah, and they'll go beyond that too. At some point, they'll say, "All right, I guess we have to be radical now," and then they'll find out what the real radical right is like, and they won't know it for very long.
And the Republican establishment now have learned to just fall in line under Trump. I mean, they threw everything at trying to stop Trump getting the nomination, and then they thought he wasn't going to win, and he won. And he's got a higher approval rating now than at the same time as Obama did. The U.S. economy is booming. They've basically accepted that Trump's brand of Republican politics is better than theirs, and so they've learnt now that if we want to keep getting re-elected, we've just got to, even if we secretly can't stand him, we've just got to shut up. And there was only four,
It's the Trump party, huh?
yeah, four Republican congressmen who voted for the resolution to condemn his tweets. I didn't see a list of that, but even Lindsey Graham, who called Trump when he was a candidate a race-baiting xenophobe, whatever. Even he's defending Trump's tweet, saying that AOC and her squad are a bunch of communists. They hate Israel. They hate our country.
They always hate Israel first, don't they?
Yeah, that's the thing. Even in Trump's tweets, they mentioned they hate Israel first before saying they hate America.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be a great way for Trump to finish up his second term, which he's obviously going to win, would be if, you know, they finally get their impeachment through and he's sitting before the committee, and all of America shows up outside and demands they make him dictator for life. That would be a great ending.
Hail our great leader.
Yes, yeah. Kaiser. Why not? Trump would be fabulous as a dictator for life.
Yeah, we want that third term.
Yeah, and a very long third term.
Very long third term. Yeah.
Well, he's called God Emperor Trump.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And just like the God Emperor, like we can just literally keep the guy alive, like inject stuff into him and just keep him there.
Donald Trump Jr. would be a fine prince to take the throne.
Our young Baron.
Well, no, Donald Trump Jr. I think, and then whoever his children are.
As long as Ivanka's not president.
No women.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, she believes in the gender pay gap, Ivanka.
Women have got to be the boss in
I don't know if
situations, but it's a country like America is just not built. Its constitution is just not designed for feminine influence, as we're seeing.
What we, because we weren't on air last week, didn't get to talk about, I'm not sure if you talked about it on XYZ Live on Monday, was the fresh arrest of pedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein.
We didn't go there. Yeah, it's Pizzagate. It's happening.
No, elite pedophile rings, that's just a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's funny how they're just trying to, like, ignore the fact that we were all talking about this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What I've actually been doing,
Mike Cernovich has been onto it for longer, like 5 years or something. He's been snooping around this stuff.
Because I've been like sick and bedridden a lot of the time. Like when this broke, like I actually watched like old. Because all the Pizzagate stuff has been deleted from like YouTube. If you type in Pizzagate, it's like all people saying how it's fake.
Yes.
And it's funny to see like just everyone say, oh, this like you know, pedophile rings in like elite circles. Oh, what a ridiculous thing. And like, oh, this is so fake, and it's
so that's actually quite beautiful, and it's YouTube shooting the left. It's the YouTube shooting itself in the foot, isn't it? Because they've deleted all the stuff giving evidence for it, but they've kept up themselves, saying that's rubbish. That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Look, there was never, like, for the record, there was never any proof that Pizzagate was real, that there was a child sex ring at this Comet ping pong. But I thought it was interesting that, like, there wasn't a tour given of the facility. Like they didn't show the basement. Like, it would have been good. Like, have a look at it. Like to have a look
Just
around.
to prove there's nothing.
The basement's pretty much the first place you'd look, right?
Yeah.
If you were looking. It's not rocket science.
Like the reason why, like, I actually didn't mind Pizzagate is because the mainstream media lost control of the agenda. Like,
you know what? It opened the Overton window on Satanism generally,
Yes.
and that was huge for me because I was just rekindling my Christianity at that time and trying to make sense of the evil in the world, and to see this stuff being presented to me on YouTube, especially about Pizzagate and spirit cooking and all of those things around that time. It's like, obviously I take it with a grain of salt. Obviously I'm skeptical and, trying to always be aware that things might be blown out of proportion, but it's not that far beyond the realm of possibility. In fact, it's, I believe this shit goes on, and that it's believable is indicative of a very evil and fallen world indeed. And, we don't even know the beginnings of the horrors that go on in these circles. We're going to find out so much shit from this Epstein case. I think it's going to absolutely rock the world.
Absolutely. It's one of those things which has kind of been hidden in plain sight as well. Like, if we think of just a few years ago, how the world was going crazy about Dan Brown, and not Angels and Demons, the other one, the
Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. Because I don't know if you guys read the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah. I enjoyed it immensely.
So, one of the main thrusts of the Da Vinci Code was to present a pagan ceremony, like a pagan sex ceremony, which supposedly traumatized this girl when she was young, for her to sort of get a deeper understanding of the Gnostic religion and pagan religion, and then understand this satanic ritual in a different light. So Dan Brown was basically putting a lot of this stuff out there into the public consciousness and trying to normalize it.
And also very much demonizing the church.
Oh, absolutely.
The established Orthodox faith in Christ of all of the churches, and to just blatantly lie about the Council of Nicaea and all the other stuff that was just total nonsense in the movie. But don't let factual history get in the way of a good yarn.
That's it. The other thing about this Epstein is that nobody knows where he got his money. Like, if you look into the backstory of this guy,
he's investment banker.
Yeah, but where did he get this money? Like, basically...
Well, it's sort of the same thing. How did Malcolm Turnbull get all his money?
Yeah, but the story goes with this guy. Like, he got given a job as some kind of maths teacher, and he did not have any kind of qualification as a maths teacher. Basically, this guy was made. And if you follow the stuff that I've been sent by David Hilton, basically this guy was made by Mossad, and he was the line being put here is that he was being used to create honey traps for the elites in America.
Anyone they wanted to control, right?
Yeah,
blackmail tapes.
Yeah, it's basically about control.
Yeah,
it's about control by the Israeli state of the American establishment. And
now the question is, do they have anything on Trump, as they're trying to insinuate with all the reporting? And I strongly suspect no.
Well, he did go to the island once.
No,
but he only went there once.
Has that actually been? I haven't heard that.
Oh, I've heard that he went once.
No, I haven't heard. I haven't
make
heard
the
that.
argument that he went and then he was discussed.
There was a story in the Daily Mail today. It has Trump partying with Epstein in 1992 with girls, but the girls are clearly adults.
Oh yes, there's that story. Yes.
Yeah.
There was an article where they tried to suggest that there was something wrong going on, but then they buried the fact that they were all over it.
If you look at the Daily Mail story, definitely older women.
Yes.
The thing about these honey traps is they're like any occult, esoteric satanic thing. There are concentric circles that you're allowed in the outer circles first, and you graduate your way all the way down to the core of it. So, when they want to get someone like Trump, under their control, they'll invite him to just a sleazy party, and a guy like Trump will have a good time, But then they'll be like, "Hey, meet Martika. She's just here from Russia." Trump's going to go, presumably if Trump's the man we hope he is, he's going to go, "No way is she of legal age. I'm out of here," and that's that. But the guys who slip and slide, get all the way down to the middle, and they've got some real filthy dirt on those people.
So apparently Trump, he knew of Epstein's crimes in 1999 and kicked him out of his Mar-a-Lago golf club. But Trump did say of Epstein in 2002, this quote's been shared around, that he said about Epstein, "Terrific guy. It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it."
So he was hinting at it back then,
Yeah.
And again, doing that thing where it's like he's saying, "Terrific guy, I love him, great to party with," and also he's a sleazy pervert, and you should watch him with your daughters. Like, how does he insult people and compliment them at the same time?
So for running this Lolita Express in this pedophile island, in 2008, Epstein got a sweetheart deal in the state of Florida, where he basically served 13 months part-time detention, where for most of the day he could just wander off and go back to his mansion. And
basically had to sleep in the jail, but that was it.
Yeah. Like he's a sex offender for life, but like that's. Yeah,
but he's got enough money and influence and connections that slap on the wrist will do.
And one of the attorneys that brokered the deal was Trump's Labor Secretary, Alexandria Acosta. Now it was funny that Democrats called on him to resign, even though they didn't bring it up, the Epstein stuff, during the confirmation hearings.
Yeah, so they knew back then. They would, of course, they knew back then.
Yeah, and this is why, stuff like Pizzagate and its successor Quanon, this is why they became so feverish, because this guy Epstein in 2008 got away with the most heinous child sex crimes, and the story was buried. And like we mentioned before, it was only because Mike Cernovich, he got the lawsuit records unsealed, and there was also a decent mainstream media journalist from the Miami Herald, if I can just find her name on the...
Yeah, you're not going to get the Washington Post or the New York Times doing this, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go here. Julie Brown of the Miami Herald, she actually spoke to the victims, because let's not remember that there are actual victims. They're not just... we're sort of talking in abstract about pedophile rings, but, there's girls whose lives have been ruined.
Yeah, well, you can read testimonials from women who talk about all this sort of stuff that goes on. It's awful. Yeah.
But of course, what hasn't been talked about is Bill Clinton being on the Lolita Express 26 times, often without his Secret Service detail. But he's like, I knew nothing. He put out a statement, and some mainstream media outlets said he'd only been on it 4 times.
Yeah, right. So they're lying about that. Yeah.
And
well, it depends on what you mean by 4. I don't know why that was meant to be Bill Clinton, but came. Jordan Peterson's all I do. So.
I have
and they're the same kind of liars, aren't they? Those two.
And I've noticed that because of doing my research for these stories, that you can no longer trust Google at all. If you type in any of these stories into Google, it comes up with mainstream media things, slandering Trump or trying to cover up, this is a conspiracy.
Google's become actually very effective. You can basically, if you want to find out what's true, just go by the opposite of the top Google results.
Yeah, I was amazed when, don't Google anything anymore.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah, DuckDuckGo. I use DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, DuckDuckGo. I've got that as my Chrome search engine. It's pretty easy to replace Google on all the non-essentials.
Because it's just opened my eyes that because you have to basically know which news websites to go to get the honest story now. You can't. They don't show up in search engines anymore.
The XYZ and the Unshackled. That's where you go, right?
That's it. Yeah. Pretty
full
much.
coverage.
I've got to give a shout out to David Hilton because he wrote a couple of articles about this a couple of years ago. Our Pizzagate article that he put up, it's actually the highest read XYZ article that we've ever had. And people were saying at the time, it's crazy. And he actually stopped writing about it because like it didn't seem to be catching on. But I'm glad that he like made like a really important document at that time because this is a long range thing. It's one of those ones like it's interesting how over the years like every now and then a story will pop up which I don't think is going to be that big a deal, but then it does become a big deal. Other stories come along and I think it's going to be a big thing and then it just disappears, and some stories just build and this one's only just getting started.
Yeah, that's it. Like I said, we can't imagine the depths of the depravity that's going to be exposed if this trend continues of hunting down pedophiles, which the DOJ seems to be right into at the moment. It seems to be happening on a larger scale. Jeffrey Epstein's just the big get for them, because he's the guy who's got the safe full of blackmail material, presumably. That's what it sounds like from what's been reported. So it's a huge step for exposing the Satanist circles that are, trafficking, raping and murdering children by the dozens daily, probably around the world.
It was pointed out by Andrew Torba, who is the CEO of Gab, that Facebook chatter and Google chatter has switched from Epstein this week to storming the Area 51 facility because there's a Facebook event now to storm Area 51 because they can't stop all of us to see where the aliens are. And there's all these memes being shared around, like Zuckerberg saying, I can just manipulate the algorithms and get everyone talking about this instead.
Yeah, something trivial. Something that'll be a big nothing burger.
Same with that facial aging app. I mean, have you?
Yeah, all of a sudden the left are worried about losing data and like.
Oh yeah, because it was designed by Russians. So
I'm much happier with a couple of Russian oligarchs or like no names having my data than the CIA and ASIO. Like, come on, guys.
I haven't used the app because I don't want to look at myself in old age.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
Like, why don't they have an anti-aging one? That'd be much better.
Yeah, that's
satanic, man. Don't make you drink kids' blood. Don't do it.
That's so
Don't
true.
be tempted.
That's so true. That's so true.
Just grow old gracefully.
It's the source of all evil, isn't it? It really is. It's like when you look at like just key fairy tales, like archetypal stories. Oh, mirror, mirror, who's the most beautiful of them all?
Oh, yeah. The vampires, the works.
Yeah.
It's like this is the satanic calling, is to try to find eternal life somewhere other than in Jesus, And,
Not meaning to jump on you, Tim, but yeah. That's it.
It's just funny, though, that they're concerned about this app because it's owned by Russians, but you put your photos up on like Facebook every day. Yeah. And like, what about the Instagram filters? Like,
what about the fact that like there was that CIA program which was designed to try to get people's information that kind of just shut down, and then Facebook was started up just like not long afterwards. It's, like, you want to get into conspiracy theories?
Just get
Look at that.
Fuck off Facebook, everyone. If you're on Facebook still, you're just asking to be in the gulag. So just get off.
I noticed
Facebook is over as a place for reasonable discourse, as a place for anything remotely resembling free speech or true speech. So just get all your friends and go Gab or go back to emails or back to writing each other postcards because Facebook ain't it.
Yeah, gas Facebook.
I noticed that, your Rational Rise page and your personal James Fox Higgins profile disappeared, but your James Fox Higgins show page is still up. So
I think the Rational Rise is still there. Or it might have been, I think it was automatically deactivated when I shut down my personal account, but I've got that active again now. And just through a couple of other people and a sock account that has no friends, I keep the Facebook page active purely just to share whatever I'm writing on the blog or Instagram, just to share it with the 3,000 people there who may not have followed me elsewhere yet.
I wonder what your sock account's called.
No, I will not reveal such things lest I get bombed with hate friend requests.
There are still a lot of
Yeah.
boomers and normicons on Facebook, so you still got to reach them.
Now, another thing that's been in the news is that Hollywood, wanting to be the uber progressive, diverse industry that it is, even though they protected Harvey Weinstein for 20 years, committing his sex crimes. But they're remake. Well, they've always wanted to remake old cartoons or franchises, but now they've got to remake them with diverse characters. So the Little Mermaid is Ariel. Well, she was originally a white ginger, but now she's going to be black. And now James Bond, well, 007 is now going to be a black woman in the new movie.
And that's only the stats they've given on her so far. It could go further than a mere black woman.
Okay, so she's still going to be after the Bond girls, you're saying here.
Yeah, mate. Well, are they going to get rid of the Bond girls and give us Bond boys?
No, they're called Bond women now because the
Oh, Lord.
what's her name again? Yeah, Lashana Lynch. That's
Lashana.
yeah.
Lashana.
Of course it is, with the apostrophe and everything.
Yeah, does it have a Y in it?
And I'm trying to find the name of the writer for the movie, but it's a female writer who is a feminist.
Wow.
Surprise, surprise. Now, I reckon before we get too deep into our disdain and our chagrin about this turn of events in Hollywood, a few things to point out. Firstly, is that all they've said is that James Bond is retired and living in Jamaica, and that the new 007, who has replaced him, who's a black woman, shows up and brings him out of retirement. So it could just be a red herring, and they might just be trolling everyone.
Okay.
It could be a sidekick movie that's going to suck, that's going to lead to a rebranding of the franchise with the continuation of this female 007. But I suspect it's going to be that. Or it could be exactly what people are saying it's going to be, which is that, basically Daniel Craig makes a cameo as James Bond, but it's really James Bond is dead and done, and they're replacing the character with a new 007. So she's not going to be it's not a new universe tweak where suddenly he's become a black woman. It's a different person, but she's assuming the role of 007, and it's going to suck.
Yeah, but James Bond, the first James Bond movie was in 1962. I mean, he's a timeless agent. That's why they got when the James Bond actors got too old, they just got a new,
like a Time Lord, basically.
Yeah. Oh well, they've
Yeah,
turned Doctor Who into a woman as well, regenerated into a woman,
Yeah.
a white woman though with blonde hair.
Well, I used to take umbrage with the fact that they took Bond, who was traditionally brunette, and made him blonde with Roger Moore, and I wasn't like, Roger Moore was kind of just wrapping up when I was born, but I was really into the whole James Bond franchise from the beginning, and for me it was like Roger Moore was a different take on Bond. He was the dandy, and he was a lot more effeminate, and he didn't have the right hair color for me, so I'm like, no, Sean Connery, he's the real James Bond. And let's go back to him. And Pierce Brosnan I thought was quite good. Daniel Craig was excellent, brilliant in the role. But there's no woman will ever be able to replace James Bond. That's just a simple fact. He is a male character, and we're not interested in a 007 franchise that doesn't have James Bond at the center of it.
Spot on. If we stay with Bond for a little bit, Daniel Craig has been my favorite James Bond since Sean Connery. I think is the best one. And the movies have actually been really good and quite gritty. I've actually really liked the movies, but
they've been up and down in the Bond tradition, where it's like you get one really great, like all of the productions are amazing, but the script writing, I think of it from the writing perspective always, but it's always like excellent turd, excellent.
I'll pay that.
forth.
I think Casino Royale was actually responsible for an uptick in blokes taking on poker in the early 2000s. Actually,
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably Walter Guns as well.
Yes. If you look at the Daniel Craig movies, you do actually see some of the PC stuff creeping in. You see.
Well, they browned Moneypenny pretty quickly.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
But she was a minor like person, like that like doesn't bother me like too much.
But that's how they they do it. That's how they get their foot in the door.
Again, the concentric circles, right? They initiate you with something that's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. This is a sleazy party. It's a black Moneypenny, whatever, and then it just hones in until eventually everyone's going, well, things have changed a lot in the last 50 years, and I didn't even see it happening.
And there are a couple of scenes that you just can't ignore. There's a scene where like one of the Bond villains says to Bond, like, because he's got Bond all tied up and everything, like there's something along the lines of have you ever been with a man? And Bond says to him,
the homo Bond scene,
why do you assume that this is my first time? And it's like, nah, this is bullshit. And also there's a scene where like he's only met this chick once, and then he hops into the shower with her, and and it's been pointed out that like the actual relationship that he has with women has actually changed. There's the scene at the end of Casino Royale, or is it Casino? Yeah, where Eva Green, the really, really beautiful lady, and like she says to Bond, like, you can put it anywhere. It's actually been pointed out that the writer of recent Bond movies, of Daniel Craig movies, was actually a homosexual. And so it actually changed the nature of James Bond. And so they were actually, they were using the concentric circles over the last few movies. You even look at the relationship that he has with again the female M. Again, there's just that foot in the door as well.
Well, it becomes it went from being
because M was originally a bloke.
The bureaucrat, the bureaucrat man was M for decades, and then with Pierce Brosnan, she became the highly competent, no bullshit, mannish woman, and then by Daniel Craig, she became his kind of surrogate mummy, and then it became this real gamma relationship with her death.
Yes.
And then it's like, well, then it swings back around, but now this, and I mean, I'm interested in what people in the chat think about whether or not it's actually going to be the end of James Bond as the central character or not.
I have enjoyed the memes after these twin announcements where they have Ryan Gosling as Martin Luther King and
why not?
Hey, James, I've got to say,
he'd do a good job. He'd study up.
The chat is focused on Avi and Israel. I don't think we're going to get in.
Yeah, last week it was all about last week it was all about Dia's friend Kwaku. They were all talking about him, but this week's it's in. Well, Avi has been in the news today. He pled guilty to throwing a chopping board at his
nobody cares about that. I want to talk about the Little Mermaid.
yeah, man. We've got to talk about this Little Mermaid.
Yeah, okay.
Well, people in the chat, we've got to acknowledge them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the Little Mermaid, I find really, really.
We don't have to.
So the Little Mermaid
We're in charge.
A really interesting one. So if we're getting into Disney, this is getting into my scene because I play Disney songs like twice a year, or a few times a year, just accompanying all singers and all this sort of stuff. So I get to hear this stuff on a regular basis. So
you've been tracking it, man. You've been tracking the progress of.
Yes, somebody's got to wade into that shithole. If Disney have gone out of their way to make princesses from other cultures. Like there was a criticism a little while ago, it's all European princesses, it's all white princesses. So they made Mulan, they made Pocahontas. Jasmine has always been like, from somewhere in the Middle East. They made a black princess, I don't know what her name is, I've never seen that movie or anything like that. They made a Hawaiian princess as well. And so like they went out of their way just to diversify.
Brotherhood of Man we've got it covered.
That's it. And so now like they're taking, I think it's a Danish princess. The Little Mermaid is actually like a fairy tale from like somewhere up in Scandinavia.
I think Denmark. Yep.
Yeah, and so obviously those countries are getting blacked, so they can black that princess now too.
Yep. Hans Christian Andersen's rolling in his grave.
Yeah. It's hilarious that leftists have tried to make the argument, I can't believe racists are going on about how the Little Mermaid has to be white. Newsflash, mermaids aren't real. Like, that's not the point. Like, the whole point is that the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves are really vital. So if you're changing who that person is, you're changing who we are as well. And so then you go into...
One thing that's conversely interesting with this new Lion King movie that's come out is I looked at the cast list, and the only original cast member is James Earl Jones. They've pulled him out of mothballs to do Mufasa one more time, which is great because
between him
and voice.
Between him and the guy who plays
there's I think
Morgan Freeman.
What's his name? John Oliver.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he does the toucan because that's appropriate for him, and the rest of the cast they're all African or African American cast members, right? So they've gone full black with the Lion King. Now, to me, that makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, it's Africa, right? And if you're going to anthropomorphize the animals of Africa, it makes total sense to do it with African voice actors. Why not? But
talking lions aren't real. Yes.
Can't we keep the little princess?
Yeah. No, we can't. We're not allowed to have anything. They have to take everything off us.
Yeah, Little Mermaid. I mean, they'll do the Little Princess too. They'll reverse that.
Oh yes. Eventually. So if you look at the hit songs of all of these, all of the Disney movies, it's always it's a genre. Like if you, I'm with an advertising agency as well, and they'll put out what kind of song they want. It's always female empowerment. This is a trope which goes across the board, but if you look specifically at The Little Mermaid, the story of The Little Mermaid is a story of a rebellious teenager who leaves her family, leaves her culture, leaves her country, leaves everything behind for a boy that she just met. She literally makes a deal with the devil to get legs, and then at the end her father has to make a sacrifice for her to help her out. So this story is just, it's a cultural Marxist story. It's telling young girls to leave the small town and go to the big city to be whores. And what I
think only with the Disney ending it's that.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, now I'm stretching my memory here, but I read the Hans Christian Andersen stories as a kid. Yes. I'm pretty sure the ending is different in that one.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a the moral is don't do this and don't let your daughters do this.
Yeah.
Whereas the Disney happy ending, she has to be with the prince. Has to be a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go do it, ladies.
Well, that's the thing here then. So the reasoning is that black girls, non-white girls, need non-white role models so that they have somebody to look up to. The conclusion of that argument is that if they're making role models non-white, then the white girls aren't going to be led by these role models as much. And so you're pushing this cultural Marxist satanic message onto the black chicks more than the white chicks. So at the end of the day, with The Little Mermaid, I'm like, well, if we're talking about Disney, they can have it, because you're essentially selling birth control to black people.
I've watched a few of the Disney Marvel movies.
It's water off a duck's back
lately, and last one I saw.
Used to me being the most mild-mannered racist on Australian television.
I watched the new Spider-Man the other week, and I noticed that was it Peter Parker? They've changed MJ. She's mixed race. His love interest. His best friend.
Another European ginger taken.
That redhead girl that used to be Peter Parker's girlfriend. She was beautiful.
Mary Jane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and she
still can be beautiful.
Spider-Man's best friend is
but she has a soul.
Is Asian. One of his classmates is a hijab girl, and then there's another prominent classmate who I'm not sure if he's Indian or something, but it's a full multiracial one. And another movie I saw recently was Aquaman. That was last year, where they have Jason Momoa as Aquaman, who's mixed race, and it was quite interesting, the story, because Nicole Kidman plays the Queen of Atlantis. She meets his father, who lives on the Earth, and like she's had like a half child, like half land, half water.
Okay.
And like
Mixed race, do you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't want to say it, did you?
And he's not accepted as the rightful king of Atlantis because he's not pure. And so the message of the film is that he is the rightful king, and like, you know, there shouldn't be this, you know, because it's a love story, his mother and father.
Wow.
If he's king, he'll take the throne. Simple as that.
That's the message that I got out of it. That it was
So
like everything about it was that you know, like love is love, and you know.
Well,
I mean, they got that into Lord of the Rings too, like, and it creeped me out actually. And
with
it's,
Frodo
you know,
and Sam.
No,
Because
there were
the way
there
they
were
showed
shades
that pissed
of
me
that,
off
for sure. But no, actually, I mean, in The Hobbit, they threw in this dwarf and elf interrace love affair. Like it's an unrequited love affair. Is that they wanted to be together, but it wasn't going to happen. You know, the pretty boy young dwarf, who's, you know, half her size, and like obviously it wouldn't happen in any Gamma's wildest dream that he gets to be with an elf if he's a lowly dwarf down here, you know. But anyway, they threw that in. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the book, and Tolkien wouldn't have put that kind of junk anywhere in it, because it's misrepresentative of what the races in the Lord of the Rings Middle Earth world are, you know,
That's
and what
important,
they represent.
In the Two Towers, like you really see the flourishing of the friendship between the dwarf and the pretty boy elf. What's his name? Between Legolas, and the dwarf.
and Gimli.
Gimli, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a friendship, and like it's interesting because they're not supposed to be friends. They're supposed to be from races who are enemies, but they're friends. But yeah, like that's
that wasn't enough.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit of Tolkien. But like, this is
that's the spirit of nationalism right there. Right?
Yes.
Is that you guys are you guys and we're us, and we're different. We don't have to agree on everything because you're there and we're here. But doesn't mean we can't work together. Doesn't mean we can't have common interests and appreciate each other, and even love each other as brothers, but of a different kind, you know. And you know, nationalism has been conflated with hatred and xenophobia and all of this garbage, and it's not that at all.
Yeah. Going on just what you were saying, Tim, where you were saying that the Aquaman was like, they brought up the whole pure blood canard, and like that's basically like in Harry Potter, like that's the whole idea of having pure blood wizards is the central reason for the war in wizardry. So what we're seeing here is the stories that we're telling, that our fantasy stories, our fiction, our science fiction, the stories that we use to tell stories about ourselves. And you can see the same thing with Star Wars as well. Like you've got like a multi-racial rebellion fighting against the white nationalist empire, all this as well. Yeah, they're all retelling the story of World War II, and they're trying to tell the story that it was race that started World War II, and it was an obsession with pure blood that started World War II. That's rubbish. It was socialism that started World War II. Socialism killed by far the most number of people on the planet in the 20th century. And the left are socialists. Socialists control the media, socialists control the entertainment, they control the publishing. So they're always trying to basically make excuses for the destruction that their ideology has caused through the 20th century and put it on to nationalists.
And it's by selling it to us as a Tower of Babel. And they do it proudly. The European Union's very promotional posters, you know, were the Tower of Babel. And it's like, you know, one nation, many voices or whatever it is, or anyway, but it's, they're really going with the satanic guidelines in the Bible. You know, read your damn Bible, kids. It's all in there.
Yeah, that's it.
And but the thing I would say about these brands that we're seeing become mutilated and turned into these weird chimera for this particular political age is that we just got to let it go. We just got to stop caring.
Let it go.
I don't give a shit about the Little
Let it
Mermaid. I don't
go.
actually give a shit about James Bond. You know, like
Yes.
I've got the Ian Fleming books. I can chuck on the Sean Connery movies when I want to, and they'll always be the same. And I've got copies of them.
Well, it was
And they
always
can
a
do whatever they
distraction,
want.
wasn't it? It was always a distraction, that sort of stuff. Like when you look at James Bond, like really he's degenerate. He lives a very superficial lifestyle. It's very light entertainment.
Yeah.
If it means that like white men are going to like, you know, look at the archetypal stories that actually created like what we have, then that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Or that refer to, you know, the higher themes and the higher messages. Read
Yes.
Tolkien, read C.S. Lewis. They're the great fantasy writers, and they were Christians, and they represented the world through that Christian lens. There is good, there is evil. God has his people, and Satan has his, and they're
We've
not the
got
same.
a caller in.
Oh, here we have.
We do that?
Yeah, we do. Hello? Oh, it's Neil Erickson, Senator Slayer. Yeah, we're good. So you're active in the chat? Well, like I said, he's been in the news today. I mentioned it briefly, but nobody wanted to talk about it. I pled guilty to throwing a chopping board at his ex-wife.
Neil has something to say about it.
Yeah, they get quite carried away. They were saying that about Kwaku last week.
What is Kwaku? What is a Kwaku?
I think it's like one of those things like when you have two electrons that are in one spot at the same two spots at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a quark.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God particle, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Are you still there? Yeah, it's actually not very good. My phone
No,
at the
we-
moment.
We're running on Boomer Tech.
Oh, well, I tried to mention it briefly, but they wanted to talk about
I
Little
wanted
Mermaid.
to talk about the bloody Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Little Mermaid.
Mm. Quacker, I don't know. We'd have to ask. Well, Dee's in the chat. She'd know.
Oh, I know Kwaku. He's that guy from Total Recall. You know the
Mm.
open your mind, Quaid. Open your mind. You know that guy?
Apparently, like if you observe him, then you change the outcome.
Somebody's gonna have to fill me in on what this Kwaku thing is.
From our what? Yeah. We said at the beginning of the show we thought the ventilation system here might have been interfered with.
Yeah, I'm still coughing blood onto the Unshackled microphone.
You know why you got it, don't you?
What?
You let Kwaku into the studio.
Well, it's only been in once, and that was a few months ago.
It's a good thing your phone belly works, Tim.
Joseph Gerbelcock has written Uncuckables. Uncuckables.
You've actually engaged with your audience.
Yeah. Oh well. If we let them
All right, Dad,
run
all
the
right,
chat,
Dad,
then
we'll
I
do
think
it.
we'd be talking about 9/11 and other historical things the whole time.
I can talk about 9/11.
There was some evidence posted in the chat that someone's seen Harvey dancing near a white man in New Jersey as the Twin Towers fell.
Mm.
For some reason, there's some weight to that. You know what I mean? I didn't hear a news story about it. I don't know, but
Where's the media?
There's a lot of like
wake up,
Arabs that look
Australia.
like Avi.
maybe. It was like King David. He put a bomb in the King David Hotel. He was busted with an unexploded bomb in a library neat. Apparently he jumped out of a plane and shot at the USS Liberty. Look, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, but yeah, I just thought I'll let you
But dude, he's just one guy.
And the Liberty was just an accident, bro. He wasn't meaning to shoot at the Liberty.
Yeah, they just like it was an accident, like with several flyovers. Yeah,
It's bad comms. It's just bad comms.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
I love it. We should just. I love the fact that it's a regular occurrence now, like the phone in from Neil. It's brilliant.
He's Australia's right-wing internet dad. Always just going to make sure you got to cover this Harvey story. Your fans, they're chatting about it. Got to listen to them. He's not entirely wrong.
Yeah. Well,
But what do we want to say about it? Like,
well, it's
he
just
pled
that, like,
guilty.
yeah.
He did something stupid in a moment of anger. He's pled guilty to it. He'll be charged. That's my dog sneezing. I apologize. But like, what's to be said? Yeah, it's a dumb thing to do. Don't throw things at people when you're angry.
Well, he didn't he was just throwing it like in general. He didn't actually aim it at her. That's what the court said. But like, it hit her because she was in the vicinity.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the odds are stacked that he threw it at her. Given that if out of 360 degrees across two axes, you throw something and it just happens to hit the ex-wife that you're angry with
He's got
in
a
the
marksman
face.
shot. Yeah.
The odds are that Occam's razor suggests he threw it at her, but that's not an accusation. It's just that's the logic of it. But in any case, it was a stupid thing to do. He's pled guilty. He'll be charged. What's to be said?
Well, he's not the only. I'll get in trouble for saying this. Patriot before the courts at the moment because, well, he hasn't spent much time in Australia recently. Well, because he's Tommy's spokesperson at the moment. Because Tommy's gone back to prison for that contempt of court. He's spending 66 days in prison, accounting for time already served for live streaming outside that Muslim gang grooming trial. Because he could have jeopardized the trial. But they also put in that he made them feel uncomfortable, the Muslims.
He made them feel
According to some
uncomfortable.
of the reports, he was molesting these convicted pedophiles outside of the courtroom.
Molesting.
They actually used the word molesting to describe
Wow.
coming up to them with a phone. Like they don't care.
Wow. It's amazing that like thousands of girls can be abused like for decades in like multiple British cities. And like there are just a handful of Muslims who've gone to jail for this, and like he's going to jail because they molested British girls.
It's basically
British establishment
because
covered it up.
like there's this and even like conservatives, classical liberals and libertarians are like, oh, but he could have jeopardized these things. Like it's really old school that like this, protecting jury trials from being prejudiced. I mean, come on, we're in the social media age. Like, you can't suppress things anymore. I mean, you really think that, the jury is like, they're going to be influenced by that? I mean, what was he really jeopardizing? Like, he just annoyed them outside of court.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a sort of old school legal precedent.
And it's
Yeah,
it's
and
playing
again,
by the rules.
it really, it's like, what they're saying is that if these guys are innocent, which I believe they've been found guilty anyway, all of
Yeah,
these,
they were guilty, yeah.
but if they're innocent, while the court is in proceeding, we need to at least keep the illusion of disbelief in innocence until proven guilt. But of course, and so you're now in trouble for putting their names and faces in a public space, embarrassing them just in case they're innocent. Well, they're guilty. So who did he embarrass?
Well,
And where did he lie?
yeah, it's because he didn't do the approved journalistic thing. Like, that's why, because...
Like they did with John Jarrett, in his recent court trials, he's gone.
Yeah,
through. It's like,
even though he was found not guilty, we can't reveal the name of the woman, even though she's found not to be a victim of rape.
he's been found to be a victim of false accusation, right? So, why can't we know who she is?
Well, the key point here is that like what Tommy was doing was basically exposing the collusion, like and the complicity of the British media, because the first
And the police.
and the police, because the first allegations came out of like abuses in Rotherham. I think that was the first one where it came out, and then it just kept coming out in town after town after town after town, and so as you have a look at the demographics of like all these British towns, you realise that this is just the tip of the iceberg in Britain alone. Then you realise that it's just the tip of the iceberg in Europe alone. And you can basically make the assumption that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even millions of young European girls are getting molested all over Europe. And the police forces of Western European countries are too piss scared to do anything about this. And the media are too scared to do anything about this. And like, here's one guy actually trying to raise attention about this. Of course they have to put him in jail. It's got nothing to do with contempt of court. It's got nothing to do with jeopardizing a conviction. It's everything to do about actually lifting the lid on what's going on.
Yep.
But they didn't sentence Tommy to like the maximum 2 years in prison that they could have.
No,
so-
they're just going about it in a 1984 fashion. Like, spend a little bit of time in jail, then go out of jail. Then we'll put you back in jail for a little bit. There's always going to be that hanging out.
Well,
your
I
head.
think they know
Then
that
we'll
if
put the rat cage on your head and
If
put
they-
the rat in and see if you squawk then.
That's it. He's going to come out and of jail, and he's going to see something in the news and start crying because he realizes that he loves Big Brother. Like, that's how it's going to finish for him. They're
well,
trying to break it.
I think the British authorities realised that when they basically sentenced him to 13 months in prison, like in secret, and suppressed it, that basically, like, the Free Tommy movement went worldwide, and you know, it got, you know, people were really angry about it, and so the British authorities was like, okay, like, you know, we can't, you know, put him away forever and like hope he gets murdered in prison. We've sort of got to like do like a moderate deterrence. That's because like they knew if they put him away for 2 years and like he died, then you know there'd be riots in the street.
Yeah.
So they're sort of they're
Pikes.
yeah they're sort of doing just enough to think they can sort of, you know, just get him out of the way.
Yeah.
Or there's also the possibility that Tommy was never a British nationalist to begin with and never had Britain's national interests in mind, and that he's a player for another party. That gets thrown around a bit, and I just thought it'd be worth throwing onto the portfolio of options there. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's possible.
Avi is his official spokesman, and his official media outlet is the Rebel Media with Ezra Levant. So,
What are you saying, Tim?
it's just.
Independent
idea.
media is all right wing. That's what it is, right?
But I want to make the point that, you know, because like, yeah, let's mention what we're all talking about here is that Tommy is a devout Zionist and his biggest support is a Zionist. That it pretty much proves that, you know, despite all the, you know, shekels and Jewish support that he got, even Benjamin Netanyahu's son tweeted out his support, it still couldn't keep Tommy out of jail. So, you know, the supposed, you know, Jewish elite, you know, they couldn't protect their, you know, most valuable asset.
Well, it takes us back to our first story. Like, Donald Trump is saying of the Gang of Four of this, whatever they're called, they hate Israel and they hate America. So he's putting Israel first there. That still doesn't protect him from being accusations of being a racist. It doesn't protect him from the House trying to put through people in the House trying to put through a bill to impeach him. Yeah. It's I love the irony that like people are trying to use Israel as a shield for once.
So back home, Neil said that he wanted to raise it, but he's been charged for interrupting Islamic Friday prayers at Federation Square when he yelled out Muhammad was a false prophet, vote Fraser Anning. So that happened back in March. So it's sort of been like this slow process. But
So hang on, public praying in a public
Federation
place
Square
is protected.
Yeah, he's been charged with disrupting religious worship.
So there's no
Okay,
need
so
really
what if we're
for,
religiously worshipping outside an abortion clinic? Is that okay?
No,
If we're
that's
praying
illegal.
outside
That's
an-
illegal.
Ah, okay, hang on. This doesn't add up. What's going on here?
So yeah, that's it's a summary offence, but it's just another thing that the state's charged him with. There's also speculation whether he'll be charged for or he didn't really disrupt that Metropolitan Church. He asked to speak, and then they didn't like what he said at that gay church.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. how can disrupting a religious service, how can you be charged for that? That just does not make sense. Like, the whole point of a religious service is that, like, you're trying to have a conversation. Like,
Yeah,
religious
my
services
entire
get
life is a
interrupted all the
religious
time.
service. So if anyone ever interrupts me, if I ever get a call that interrupts my religious service, that is my whole life, I'm going to absolutely start looking through the Refidex for a lawyer and sue.
And Blair Cottrell, he was also. We had 2 hearings last Tuesday and this Tuesday because, for those who don't know, he is appealing his conviction under Victoria's Racial and Religious Tolerance Act for beheading that dummy in Bendigo, the mock beheading to protest the mosque up there, which still hasn't been built in Bendigo.
But dummies everywhere were offended. So
Well, there was fake blood
something
that
had to
came
be done.
out, so it was pretty hardcore.
And I hear they're going after the Mythbusters after this.
So he was convicted along with Neil Erickson and Christopher Shortis. Christopher Shortis was also in court last week. He's trying to get a license to be a security guard, but it's been denied to him because of the beheading conviction, and so he's at VCAT for that. But Blair is challenging the conviction just on his own with patriot lawyer John Bolton, who wears the label the go-to lawyer for far-right extremists.
Yeah, good on him. Maddie and I looked at
He's
this on
got
Monday.
balls, that guy.
Maddie and I looked at this on Monday. Was it the Victorian Bill of Rights that was
A
actually
Victorian
introduced under-
Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities.
There we go, introduced by the Brax government.
Yeah.
I think that was a big mistake because we looked at what that actually said, and it basically guarantees people's right to freedom of speech, whether it be by art, whether it be in writing, or a medium, pardon me, a medium of their choice. Basically, in Victoria, you have the right to free speech guaranteed to you by the state.
Wow.
The Labor Party put it in.
Victorian Attorney General Jill Hennessy decided to get involved in the case because we've got to protect our laws against, hate speech.
Yeah,
and
because she
conviction.
realised that the law actually is on his side, and she's got to
Oops.
find a way to stop that.
Oops.
Yeah, it's a big oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I see. I would have thought that the Charter of Civil Rights and Responsibilities for Victoria would have just been a link to the Facebook user guidelines, but it's
Yeah,
that's heartening to find out that freedom of speech is protected.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, I think they did it like over 10 years ago, so it was still
Yeah,
obviously.
that was when free speech was still sort of cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
still basically back when the left was still working on dismantling Western civilization. They put that law in, just to give them a little extra boost. Like, I'm pretty sure they don't guarantee the right to life of unborn babies, for example.
Well, this is the thing about the people of the lie and anyone who serves the movement of lies, which is the left, is that the truth necessarily wins because the truth doesn't exist in reality. The lies don't exist in reality, only the truth does. And it's like every law, every weapon that they wield against the right, who are of the truth, right, will ultimately be turned back on them at some point.
Yeah,
So every law they put in place to protect their freedom of speech, well, we'll use that now. And then, as things escalate, the right will meet them where they stand. And, this is an eternal battle. It really is.
So they put an application to have the matter heard in the Supreme Court because, as Victoria's highest court, that is able to make the ultimate determination on the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities. But County Court Judge Lisa Hannon said, no, we can decide the facts in this court. So 10-day trial is going to proceed beginning August 12th. But it was quite interesting. There was a lot of mainstream media reports that day, and probably the worst was the Guardian. Here we go. Far-right extremist.
Hey, wait. Let's start again.
Far-right extremist and convicted racist Blair Cottrell fails in Supreme Court appeal bid. Now, he wasn't
That convicted racist. That's the best. It's such transparent bullshit, you know. Like
But he
he's
wasn't. He wasn't.
convicted of racism.
He
Pretty
wasn't
sure
con-
racism is not a crime.
Yeah, but he
That's
wasn't
right.
convicted of race. He was. It was under the religious vilification part.
Yeah, right.
No, but,
So
but
he's-
he's a racist who's been convicted of something. Therefore,
Yes.
he's a convicted racist.
No,
Yeah.
but he's not. That's
the-
not.
the
That's not
wizardry
actually
that-
correct.
Yeah, that's the bullshit media
That's
for
what
you.
they mean.
Because the Guardian, they actually did a report last week on the application, and it was actually quite fair. And so what I think happened is because all these mainstream media journalists, when they post like about Blair or Neil or anyone else on like Twitter, if they don't call them far right neo-Nazi extremists, then like they get all these like Twitter people replying, you know, you haven't mentioned, you know, these people are Nazi criminals. blah, blah,
Condemn
blah.
harder.
Yeah.
Condemn harder.
And so obviously the Guardian has like realized their error and like, oh no, our readers, like, you know, we were too fair, and so they come out with that headline.
Yes.
And it'll only grow. I think we've been joking about that in our little chat room, you know, about like they're just going to keep adding new words. Uber far right, super extreme, mega ultra
Yeah.
racist whites.
On the show, we won't have time tonight, but I want to explore. There's a new section on Wikipedia, far right politics in Australia.
Did we make it? I had a look on there. And I couldn't
Yeah,
find it.
because
It
there's
reads like a Slack bastard article.
yeah,
so-
because they have like, you know how Wikipedia has the series on things.
Yes.
So it's got as far right literature, the Unshackled and XYZ.
I'm stoked. I'm so
No.
sick.
But
Well
our
done.
pages haven't been
Congratulations, guys.
our pages haven't been written yet.
All right. Well, maybe I'll get on the editor. I'll get on the Wikipedia editor, see if I can get something in there.
Yep.
But
make the first iteration golden.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'll
Screenshot it.
describe myself as a white supremacist neo-Nazi.
All the way. Just make
Yeah.
it easy for them. Yeah, yeah. That's it. But this is the thing: is that, you know, some of us have reached the point where the name calling doesn't bother us anymore. You know, and that's the beginning. You know, like, and Trump is the guy who sort of made it okay to take the slings and arrows, and people in the West, men of the West in particular, are beginning to wake up and go, actually, yeah, it really is only sticks and stones that break my bones. And so call me what you want. I know what you are. And yeah, like, it's just going to be beautiful when people stop giving a damn and we stop cowering, because what it's going to do is take any vestige of power left that the mainstream media have and just turn it to dust. If their words and their lies and their nonsense don't hurt us anymore and don't stop us, they're gone. They're dead.
The other major story of the week is that apparently a naturally formed rock in Australia is sacred, and some people have decided that it's offensive and insensitive to climb.
Yes, yes. Which is why I suggested that we should actually find ways to avoid, minimize the climbing. Like, we could build a road up there. We could construct a helipad.
Erosion's real bad, man. Like, yeah. I'm
There
all for
actually
the
hasn't
road or the
been.
ramp.
Like there actually hasn't been in the reports about Ayers Rock that it is being destroyed. It's just that climbing it is insensitive to, and it's not to all Aboriginal people. It's because basically what this is, it's just the Aboriginal industry and activists wanting another reason to tell off white people. That's what it is.
And they want to take something away from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not theirs. Ayers Rock is not theirs. Like, they didn't build it.
No. Well, it's ironic because somebody said, there was a great outpouring of grief when Notre Dame went up in flames. Why don't we get the same sort of level of support over our sacred sites? It's like, well, it's a rock that you didn't build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
yeah. What, do you want us to set Ayers Rock on fire? What? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, somebody suggested
Would that even work?
Someone suggested on
would it
XYZ.
do anything?
Just dynamite it and get it over with.
Yeah,
That'll
like-
settle the argument.
Yeah, if we can't climb it, nobody can have it. God damn it.
Yeah. It's been done before, bro.
Like,
We should build a mosque on top of it.
I'm an adherent to Austrian economics, which, if you read Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard, they say that to have ownership of something, like, you can't just claim something that's a natural resource. You have to mix it with your labor. And That hasn't been done. The rock hasn't been mixed with anyone's labour.
So what you're saying?
I prefer to go one step further and take the Kurt Doolittle definition of property, which is that property is anything that you will act to defend. And sure, nagging and whinging to the media is one way to defend it. It certainly has some effect, but at the end of the day, it's like I said earlier: if someone's the king, they'll take the throne. You can talk and moralize all day and say it's ours, it's ours, it's ours, whinge, 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 nag, nag, nag. If they can physically stop people from climbing it, then it's theirs.
Yeah.
And if
But-
they can't, then it's not.
The ban comes in October, and there's a surge in people wanting to climb it now. So clearly, people why wouldn't you want to climb it?
There's
I mean,
obviously a demand for
Yeah.
it. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just
it's on
what
a lot
we
of
do.
bucket lists.
Yeah, well, it's what white people do. We like to climb to the top of things and claim it. It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And-
but what are they going to do? Are they actually going to set up a police base at the bottom of it to stop people climbing it? How are they going to
what's-
stop people climbing it?
Well, it's no easy feat to actually
It,
climb
it should be like Area 51. Like everybody should go to Ayers Rock, and we go. They can't stop us all from climbing it.
Well, I doubt they'll even be able to stop one teenager from climbing it. You watch the day they put in the sign that says no climbing, it's insensitive to the natives.
So true.
Some teenager with a GoPro is going to run up there and go, "Fuck you."
And post it on poll. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
Then the question is, will that trigger enough political furor that Antifa will show up and defend the gate?
Oh yeah, because they've turned up to what is
Bring
it?
water, guys. Lots of water.
Well, us white people, we actually climb our own sacred sites. The Sydney Harbour Bridge, that was built by white people. We
Yeah,
climb that.
That's our sacred site. Yeah.
yeah,
absolutely.
we climb it.
Yeah.
That's a symbol of oppression, mate. We're gonna have to tear that down too. But the rock stays, and no white people can climb it.
I noticed that we've called it, Ayers Rock.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's called Ayers
Very
Rock.
racist.
Because we conquered this country before white men came here. It was nothing but bush. So white men discovered it. It had never been discovered before then. So yeah, of course it's called Ayers Rock.
Yeah.
There's actually a great little thing in the news.com article to which I linked. I didn't actually mention this in my article. I just made jokes about all the things that we could do to build on top of Ayers Rock. But they pointed out because Pauline Hanson went on the Today Show.
Yeah.
And so the article claims that social media erupted, bagging out the fact that two white people.
Yeah, because it was Steve Price,
Yes.
and it was moderated by Deborah Knight.
Yes, and so aside from the fact that pretty much all of these tweets were by white people that they showed, they actually used this line. They said that dozens of people on Twitter complained about this. Seriously, dozens of people sharing an XYZ article or an Unshackled article is a slow day for us. And they're trying to say that it's an
Stop
internet
the
furor.
press.
Come on,
There's
guys.
24 of them.
and they weren't this is the thing, you're not allowed to have an opinion on a rock because you're white.
Yeah.
Normally the argument is, you can't comment on Aboriginal welfare if you're white. This is taking to an even absurd level that you can't comment on. Does Australia are we?
Well, it can't be universalized, can it? You can't comment on the rock because you're not black, and yet Aboriginal people are allowed to comment on any Western institution that they're the beneficiaries of and involved with.
And they
at all.
must take our mermaids.
Maybe we should say that people of color should not be allowed to comment on organizations like Lad Society.
Absolutely. And you
I'd go
cannot have a
further.
black
I'd
mermaid.
say, I'd go further and say, no, I wouldn't actually say this, but isn't it interesting that you can't say, extending that logic to the universal position that, our government was formed by British colonialists, and so you're lucky if you have any say at all in the way the country's run. But like you said before, Dave, is that your position is it's Ayers Rock because we conquered it and we named it that upon conquest.
Yes.
The trouble is, all it takes is 4 or 5 generations of propaganda and indoctrination to make us open to reconquest, which is not going to happen by the Aboriginals. Really, we got to stick together with those guys. We're in this together now. They need us, and we don't need them, but they're here and they have a right to be here.
Yeah.
But it's if you can't protect it, you don't own it. So we got to,
That's
you know,
it.
it's not enough to just say it's ours, it's theirs, Rock.
And that's what this
It
is
has to be
about.
defended.
Like what you said, it's about reconquest. Like they're trying to put it in terms of human rights and equality and diversity and tolerance and all this stuff. Those are code words for basically taking our country from us.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not, and it's important to point out. I mean, most people who are having these kinds of conversations realize this. It's not the Aboriginal community.
No.
You know, it's not the Aboriginal people
Yeah, they've been
who
used.
are rising up against us. They are just the next set of pawns in a much, much bigger global game. And the global game is end the white race.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
end the dominance of the white race and end all vestiges of European colonialism and imperialism.
Yeah,
And
get-
you know,
yeah.
they'll take whoever they can get.
Get this, it's Bob Hawke gave Ayers Rock to the Anugu people, but it's managed by the Director of National Parks, assisted by Parks Australia, who actually look after it. So, you know, who do you think runs, was it Parks Australia?
Self-hating whites.
So, like, they've got ownership on it, they're allowed to make decisions on it, but it doesn't seem like they're actually taking care of it.
I'll tell you who will own it. It's that teenager with the GoPro when he goes up the top on the first day of it being illegal. He is the new king of Ayers Rock.
That's it.
Someone do it. Egg boy, someone.
And then
Anyone.
set off a stick of dynamite. Chisel your name in there.
We are just to be clear, the Uncuckables is not calling for a suicide bombing attack on Ayers Rock.
Well, how can it be like it's a
No,
rock?
I just want somebody to chisel a cross in there.
There could be,
Yeah.
like, who knows, there could be, like, you know, lots of minerals in there.
Yeah, well, it's an underutilized resource. Like, and apparently the rock goes a long way further down than it goes up. So there's no knowing what's in that thing.
It's actually a giant crystal that's plugging up the portal to hell. And if you mess with it, if you put a crack in it, man, it's Pandora's box. The demons are going to fly.
I'll take my chances.
So get there before October if you can. Get to Ayers Rock.
It'll be
climb it.
Rocktober.
Rocktober.
Yeah, well, I think Ayers Rock is our equivalent to Area 51, like you said earlier. So yeah, we might as well converge on it. Well, guys, I better jump off. I'm a bit past my curfew.
Yeah,
That's how we call it.
we will call it. So
Did we get to everything anyway?
Yeah, we did. Oh, the only
Oh, wow. It was
thing.
riveting.
Yeah. Well, we've gone over time anyway, so but yeah, we had a good audience tonight for our first night back, and yeah, it was good to catch up on all the news.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for listening. It's been
And we'll see
a lot of fun.
what people are outraged about next week, and what traditions or folklore they try to change next week.
Yep.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
it.
And
We'll have
to
a
the
Black
guys in the
Friday.
chats, you know, like if you stay on topic, we'll read your comments out.
I mean, who's going to be who's going to be responsible for 9/11 like next week? Like last week it was Kwaku, this week it was Avi. Like who's going to be responsible for like all these terror attacks in the chat next week?
I think what we need is one of those little ticker lines at the bottom there that people can just write in who's responsible for 9/11 right now and just cast their vote. And we can just have it rolling across the screen the whole time. Then we don't have to comment at all.
Depends who's like the sort of the object of mockery by the people of the chat.
Fair enough.
I don't know who will it be next week. That's the thing. We should have a betting market. Who's going to be sort of
Yasmin.
Sorry.
Yasmin. Yasmin Abdel Magid. It's the other horse lady. It's been a while since she made the news.
Yeah, she needs to be relevant again. She'll do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was complaining about she commented on the Disney thing, saying like, "Oh, people say they don't care about skin color unless you change Disney characters from white."
Yeah. Oh, okay, there we go. So
And there was
that's
also it was also raised that because on Q&A, people said, "Oh, would people be defending Israel Folau's rights if he were Muslim?" And they were saying like, "Oh, we saw that Yasmin, like her free speech, she was forced out of the country."
forced out of the country. She chucked a
gonna
hissy
keep-
fit and she left.
Yeah.
She
cried and
actually-
ran
She'll,
away.
she'll never let that stop her beating the victim drum. You know,
Yeah, that's
like,
it,
it's
that's
a
it.
it's a whole
Well, that should be inspiration for Trump. If Yasmin can leave, then so can the squad.
Yes, absolutely.
So
doing it
maybe AOC, Ilhan Omar, they're the other two ones.
The trouble is that Yasmin was just annoying to the whole nation, and these squad women in America can actually implement change in law or be part of it anyway. So that's DEFCON 3, I think. Cool, guys. Good hang.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you follow the Unshackled. We're becoming more active, so is the XYZ and Rational Rise. I don't do the uploading anymore, so I don't monitor it that much anymore. I hate to say.
Still ticking along, but it's up and down. Family first,
Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next week in case there's another bio attack here.
Awesome. Stay well, boys.
Cheerio, everybody.
Deus Volt.
The Uncuckables.